Good morning, and welcome to the virtual worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Monterey Peninsula. My name is Susan Hosevar, and I'm currently serving as the chair of our church's intern committee. We are a congregation of people of different ages, races, classes, religious and sexual orientations, gender identity, and political views. Our purpose is to change our own lives, even as we work to change the world around us, through love, learning, and service to others. You should have received a link to our order of service in Friday's email. You can always find a link to the Sunday services on our church's website. You can also view past services on our church website. We hope you'll check it out. Please contact the church office by phone or email if you would like to receive our weekly e-news, which has more information about how you can stay involved in church life. If you're a visitor with us today, please fill out our virtual visitor card. You can find the link in the Zoom chat box or on the church's website. Our worship theme for this month is grace. And today's service is entitled Circles of Synergy and is led by Reverend Elaine Gehrman and Worship Associate Ann Jacobson. And today we want to extend our warmest welcome to our new church members who've joined the church in the recent year. They will be recognized during the service, and thanks so much for your membership and participation in our mission of love, hope, and justice. And today, please plan to attend our virtual annual congregational meeting following the worship service. Members will be voting on the election of new board members, the annual budget, and on adopting the UU 8th principle. Please stay on the Zoom link for the meeting or sign off and sign back on again shortly before noon so we can determine our quorum. The meeting begins at noon. We hope you'll be there. Our shared offering recipient for May is Home Match Monterey, a program of the Covia Foundation. Covia seeks to connect homeowners with available rooms with others who are seeking affordable housing. Those with homes benefit from extra income, companionship, or even help around the house. Those who live, work, or study in Monterey County are able to find needed, affordable accommodations in our community. Half the cash from your offering this month, and checks made out to UUCMP with Covia in the memo line will support this important group. Please donate generously to this worthy group. And we want to welcome Doris Beckman, who will now tell us more about Home Match Monterey and the Covia Foundation. Following Doris's presentation, please enjoy this morning's musical prelude.
Thank you for selecting Home Match to be the shared plate recipient for May. Home Match connects people with available rooms in their homes or apartments with people seeking affordable housing. Older adults are empowered to remain in their homes, and those who live, work, or go to school in Monterey County are able to find affordable housing in the community they love. We connect people based on lifestyles, and shared interests to help ensure compatibility. There are three main reasons that people decide to share their homes. The first one is financial. The story of Joe. Joe is 73 years old, unable to work due to back problems. His two friends allowed him to move into their apartment and kindly let him pay whatever he could while they continued to pay the rent and utilities. When they lost their jobs due to COVID and had to leave the area, Joe was left in the apartment by himself with no way to pay the $1,800 a month rent or utilities. The second reason is help around the home. The story of Bob. Bob is 87 years old and recently lost his wife. He is looking for extra help around the house. He's not interested so much in the money. He would like someone to talk to, and he also fears being alone and the possibility of falling. The third reason is loneliness and isolation. Lindsay is an active 67-year-old. She loves to volunteer, visit her grandchildren. She works in a doctor's office, and she's always on the go. At least she was until COVID. And now Lindsay is left feeling very lonely and isolated. She's looking for someone who she can share meals with, walk with, or go out to dinner with. With the world in so much turmoil, many people are just barely hanging on to their homes. With the support of generous people like you, we will be able to continue to provide financial resources and services that will help people remain as independent as possible in the places that they call home. Together, we can ensure that our aging community can stay in their chosen homes. We can create affordable housing and build community engagement that combats isolation. Thank you so much for your support.
For our call to worship this morning, we have words by the Reverend Katie Kandarian Morris. Here we have come into this sacred space, quieter now with our readiness. Hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing, for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration and consolation. Here we have come into this space, bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing, however we are changed. Come, let us worship together.
And now please join us in singing Our World is One World.
Our world is one world. What touches one affects us all. The seas that wash us round about, the clouds that cover us, the rains that fall. Our world is one world. The thoughts we think affect us all. The way we build our attitudes with love or hate we make a bridge or wall. Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many homes, but where our hearts can hear a different call.
With Unitarian Universalists throughout the world, we light our chalice, the symbol of our covenanted aspirations of love, hope, and justice. I'll begin with the words of the leader and ask you to join in the unison response as Axel lights the flame. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
Good morning. I am Maren Martin, and I serve as chair of our membership committee. On behalf of the committee, I would like to take a moment to welcome those new members who have joined our church in the past year. We welcome Anne McDowell, Sundeep Gupta, and Fatima Limas Gupta. Rose and Mike Lovell. On behalf of the whole congregation, we welcome you as we were once welcomed ourselves.
We seek to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas, and your vision, in times when it is easy and in times when it is difficult.
We seek to be supportive, not only when you reach out in courage to us, but also when we need to reach out to you. In return, we ask that you recognize our humanity.
We will not always live up to our ideals, and when we fall short, we invite you to stay in relationship with us and help us more fully bring alive the spirit of love.
We welcome you as an equal member of this congregation, of this faith, and of our shared spiritual journey.
And now I invite the members of this congregation to join in these words of welcome. We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Monterey Peninsula, welcome you. We invite you to share our concern for others, for justice, and for the natural world, and our belief that through common effort we may better shape the meaning of our lives. Let us join our strengths and talents so that together we may create a more loving and caring world. Welcome.
Our story for all ages today is Chester's Way, written and illustrated by Kevin Henkes, published by Green Willow Books. Chester had his own way of doing things. He always cut his sandwiches diagonally. He always got out of bed on the same side, and he never left the house without double knotting his shoes. Chester always had the same thing for breakfast, toast with jam and peanut butter, and he always carried a miniature first aid kit in his back pocket, just in case. "You definitely have a mind of your own," said Chester's mother. "That's one way to put it," said Chester's father. Chester's best friend Wilson was exactly the same way. That's why they were best friends. Chester wouldn't play baseball unless Wilson played, and they never swung at the first pitch or slid head first. Wilson wouldn't ride his bike unless Chester wanted to, and they always used hand signals. If Chester was hungry, Wilson was too, but they rarely ate between meals. "Some days I can't tell those two apart," said Wilson's mother. "Me either," said Wilson's father. Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. They loved to go on picnics. Once, when Wilson accidentally swallowed a watermelon seed and cried because he was afraid that a watermelon plant would grow inside him, Chester swallowed one too. "Don't worry," said Chester. "Now, if you grow a watermelon plant, I'll grow one too." Chester duplicated his Christmas list every year and gave a copy to Wilson, because they always wanted the same things anyway. For Halloween, they always dressed as things that went together: salt and pepper shakers, 2 mittens on a string, ham and eggs. "They really are 2 peas in a pod," said Chester's mother. "Looks like it," said Chester's father. In spring, Chester and Wilson shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester, that's the way it was. And then Lily moved into the neighborhood. Lily had her own way of doing things. She wore Band-Aids all over her arms and legs to look brave. She talked backwards to herself sometimes so no one would know what she was saying. And she never left the house without one of her nifty disguises. Lily waved at all the cars that passed by, even if she didn't know who was in them. And she always carried a loaded squirt gun in her back pocket, just in case. "She definitely has a mind of her own," said Chester. "That's one way to put it," said Wilson. When Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said they were busy. When she called them up on the phone, they disguised their voices and said they weren't home. If Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson crossed to the other and hid. "She's something else," said Chester. "Looks like it," said Wilson. One day, while Chester and Wilson were practicing their hand signals, some older boys rode by, popping wheelies. They circled Chester and Wilson and yelled personal remarks. Chester and Wilson didn't know what to do. Just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the older boys away. "Are you who I think you are?" Chester asked the cat. "Of course," the cat replied. "Thank you, Lily," said Chester. "You're welcome, Chester," said Lily. "Thank you, Lily," said Wilson. "You're welcome, Wilson," said Lily. "I'm glad you were wearing a disguise," said Chester. "And I'm glad you had your squirt gun," said Wilson. "I always do," said Lily, "just in case." Afterward, Chester invited Lily over for lunch. "You have a Muscle Mouse cup?" said Lily. "Of course," said Chester. "I do too," said Lily. "Same here," said Wilson. Chester and Wilson cut their sandwiches diagonally. Lily asked Chester's mother if she had cookie cutters, and she made stars and flowers and bells. "That's neat," said Chester. "Wow," said Wilson. That night, Lily invited Chester and Wilson to sleep over. "You have a nightlight?" said Chester. "Of course," said Lily. "I do too," said Chester. "Same here," said Wilson. Chester and Wilson wanted toast with jam and peanut butter for breakfast the next morning. "Boring," said Lily. "Try this instead." "This is good," said Chester. "Wow," said Wilson. After that, when Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said yes. When she called them up on the phone, they had pleasant conversations. And if Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson waved and ran to catch up with her. Chester and Wilson taught Lily hand signals, and she taught them how to pop wheelies. Lily taught Chester and Wilson how to talk backwards, and they taught her how to double knot her shoes. "Some days I can't tell those three apart," said Lily's mother. "Me either," said Lily's father. Chester and Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. For Halloween, they dressed as the three blind mice. For Christmas, Lily gave Chester and Wilson nifty disguises, and they gave her a box of multicolored shoelaces, extra long for double knotting. They loved to go on picnics. When Chester and Wilson told Lily about how they had each swallowed a watermelon seed once, Lily swallowed 3 of them. "I'll grow a watermelon plant for each of us," she said. In spring, Chester and Wilson and Lily shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. And then Victor moved into the neighborhood. The end.
Synergy is when 2 or more entities working together create something that is better than the sum of their individual efforts. But what comes to mind for me is more exciting than that dry definition. It's that electricity of coming together to create something that individually you would not be able to do that I find so inspiring. Teamwork and collaboration have always energized me. Some thrive on solitude and do their best work alone, but that is not me. For years, my email signature file was the African proverb, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." So, I've been challenged by this long period of COVID isolation. While I've appreciated the opportunity to pursue new solitary interests, I've also been a bit depressed. But thanks to technology and opportunities presented by our church and other groups, I've been happily surprised that I still have found ways to interact and collaborate synergistically. Here are just a couple examples from church. Choir. Choral singing is a great illustration of synergy because the combined efforts of the accompanist, conductor, and singer's voices is more powerful than any individual's contribution. We work together to create something for ourselves and our listeners that none of us could independently create. During this pandemic, church choir has continued to meet over Zoom. I think it's fair to say that meeting online where we can't hear each other's voices and singing alone into a recording that Camille then compiles into a file doesn't really begin to compare to the experience of creating music together. But
But I think it's also true that we have nonetheless created something that is more powerful than if any one of us individually had performed. And we've helped to create a sense of community for ourselves and the congregation that wouldn't be possible if we didn't appear together on the screen. Another example is the worship team. When I decided to re-engage in church work after a long hiatus, I wanted to find an opportunity where I would learn and grow, and where I would also experience the collaboration and synergistic dynamics that I thrive on. I chose the worship team because it seemed like both a way to grow personally and an opportunity to regularly collaborate with others to create something new. And that's proven to be the case. I've experienced that excitement when one person's idea sparks another in me that's different than what I would have come up with on my own. And I've experienced that feeling of connection that you get with someone when you successfully work together. So today, as we celebrate new members and come together for our annual meeting, it's a good time to remember that UUCMP provides many opportunities to synergistically collaborate with others to create something for ourselves and for our community and world that is greater than what any one of us can do alone. Not everyone wants or needs that, but if you thrive on that buzz like I do, you can find your place here.
And now please join as we sing the round to Building Bridges. We'll sing it once in unison and twice as a four-part round. It goes.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, and bridges, just reach out our visions. Friends, and bridges, just reach out our visions. With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, and bridges, just reach out our visions. Friends, and bridges, just reach out our visions. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
This now is the time we take each week. We pause and think about what's been happening in our lives and what's been happening in the lives of the people we love and care about, whether they're close by or far away. We each bring with us our own joys and sorrows, so many people and happenings that are on our minds and in our hearts. We'll now drop a few pebbles representing your individual joys and sorrows into our shared waters of love and support. If you like, you can write your joy or sorrow in the chat. You can also contact the Co-Ministers or Caring Network directly. For our meditation this morning, we'll be guided by words from Reverend Leslie Ahuva Falls. Following the spoken meditation, we'll have a few moments of silence. Please join me now in the spirit of prayer and meditation. All that we have been separately and all that we will become together is stretched out before and behind us like stars scattered across a canvas of sky. We stand at the precipice, arms locked together like tandem skydivers, working up the courage to jump. Tell me, friends, what have we got to lose? Our fear of failure? Our mistrust of our own talents? What have we got to lose? A poverty of the spirit? The lie that we are alone? What wonders await us in the space between the first leap and the moment our feet, our wheels, however we move our bodies across this precious earth, touch down softly on unknown soil? What have we got to lose that we can't replace with some previously unimaginable joy? Blessed are you, Spirit of life, who has sustained us, enlivened us, and enabled us to reach this moment. Give us courage in our leaping and gratitude in our landing. And share with us in the joy of a long and fruitful life together. This now is time for our morning offering. We encourage you to think about your financial support for your church home, the resources we require to carry out our good works. We encourage you to write a check, drop it in the mail, or you can use the donate button on our website. You're also encouraged to contribute to our shared offering recipient this month, Home Match Monterey, Covia. And now please enjoy our offertory music.
Our first reading is from Stephen Covey's classic, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of my favorites. Habit 6 is synergize. Innovate and problem solve with those who have a different point of view. To put it simply, synergy means 2 heads are better than 1. Synergize is the habit of creative cooperation. It's teamwork, open-mindedness, and the adventure of finding new solutions to old problems. But it doesn't just happen on its own. It's a process, and through that process, people bring all their personal experience and expertise to the table. Together, they can produce far better results than they could individually. Synergy lets us discover jointly things we are much less likely to discover by ourselves. It's the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. 1 + 1 = 3, or 6, or 60, you name it. When people begin to interact together genuinely, and they're open to each other's influence, they begin to gain new insight. The capability of inventing new approaches is increased exponentially because of differences. Valuing differences is what really drives synergy. Do you truly value the mental, emotional, and psychological differences among people? Or do you wish everyone would just agree with you so that you could all get along? Many people mistake uniformity for unity, sameness for oneness. Differences should be seen as strengths, not weaknesses. They add zest to life.
Our second and final reading is by author and activist Adrienne Marie Brown from her reflection on transformation, personal and political. She writes, "A few years ago, the first time I walked into the Boggs Center in Detroit, a quote on a worn piece of paper was posted on the wall. Organizing is to community what spiritual practice is to the individual." I'd spent years longing for this articulation of how I felt about my work and my life. When I am in my work in the right way, I feel this clarity, this depth of capacity and wholeness. It feels like I am in touch with the larger work that humans are here to do, that which can never be fully named or articulated. Organizing is to the community what spiritual practice is to the individual. In the past few years, I've been deepening my spiritual practices and seeing the truth in this quote from the view of having an individual spiritual practice. In the same way that daily discipline to a practice can create an opening for transformation in the individual, steady, deep work in the community can open up the space for transformation of the world. Our worship theme for this month is union. I think it's fair to say we may never have appreciated quite so much union as after the past year. of isolation. A classic maxim attributed to Aristotle, I'm sure most of us have heard often, is that the whole is more than the sum of the parts. Chefs know this. A delicious meal is more than its ingredients. Architects know this. A functional building is more than bricks and mortar. Any child who's played with Lego blocks knows this. Anyone who, like Anne, has sung in a choir knows this well. The whole is more than the sum of the parts. I think each one of us is a great example of this truth. We are each made up of flesh and bone, thoughts and feelings, influences of family and friends, school and society, locations, communities, ancestors, and dreams. And yet each of our unique selves is more than the sum of these various parts and the many experiences that have shaped us. Likewise, our church community is more than a collection of individuals. We are more than the sum of our members. When we come together, we can think more, do more, dream more, act more, transform more. I have to think of the service auction that we celebrated last night and the pictures from all the past service auctions, all the fun we had together, all of the costumes, the skits, the delicious food, the talent. We definitely had more fun together than any one of us could have had alone. And we created together not just income for the church, not just tangible objects and services for one another, but a more intangible and yet very real sense of community, a belonging to something larger than ourselves, more connection, more appreciation, more unity. And yet we do need to be careful not to confuse unity with uniformity. I think Stephen Covey was onto something when he said that our capacity to invent new approaches is increased exponentially because of our differences. Valuing differences is what really drives synergy. I don't know whether or not Kevin Henkes, author of Our Story for All Ages, read Stephen Covey, but his story, Chester's Way, certainly makes a similar point. Chester and Wilson were a little stuck in their rut. They needed number 3, Lily, to widen their horizons, to add zest to their habits, to create new adventures and fun. Have you ever had Chesters and Wilsons exclude you? Which lilies might you have excluded? Looking back on my own life, I can remember a few instances of each. Times when I didn't really welcome others, and times when I didn't really feel welcomed. And yet, just as Chester and Wilson grew and expanded and found more joy with the addition of Lily to their circle, so we too benefit from our new members that we've welcomed today, as we hope that they benefit from us. It's a point that gets at the heart of what this church is all about and how we are organized. Not only have we welcomed new members today, but today, following the service at the annual meeting, we'll be electing new board members. We have term limits for board members, both to not to demand too much from them, but also to ensure that new people, new ideas, and new energy are brought into the board each year. Now, you may have heard me mention before that during these pandemic times, Axel and I have been making good use of televised entertainment. Another recent streaming treat in the Gehrman household is the British competition show, The Great Pottery Throwdown, where amateur potters compete in different ceramic challenges each week. I don't know much about making pottery, but there are some interesting lessons. One of which is that big slabs of clay, which look really sturdy and solid, are often prone to cracking in the intense heat of the kiln. It turns out that smaller pieces of clay, joined together well, do much better when things get hot. So we need not only diverse people, but good joins. If you haven't had a chance to meet our new members, consider reaching out to them, dropping them a note, inviting them for coffee or a walk. Find out what you have in common and what is unique about each of you. Board members, please welcome the new board members. Share your experiences and be open to their new ideas. In the Taoist writing, the Tao Te Ching, the ancient Chinese text says, "The Tao gives birth to one. One gives birth to two. Two gives birth to three. Three gives birth to all things." Somewhat parallel to the Genesis creation story, the Tao gives birth to one. The universe was created. The one gives birth to two. The world was divided into day and night, darkness and light, yin and yang. And then most scholars believe that two gives birth to three refers to the interaction between the yin and the yang, with the additional presence of qi, the life force, which then creates the possibility of all living things. Qi is the number 3. It gives birth to all things. We need more than just ourselves. We need more than just another person. We need more in our lives to come together, to help us come to life, to connect and grow and transform, to be more than we can be alone. We need engagement, that third thing, the creative spark that gives birth to all other things. So when the worship associates were thinking about the topic of union and synergy several months ago, the concept of Venn diagrams came up. You know, those overlapping circles that were originally designed to show the intersection of two sets. Some of us thought they might also be useful in conveying this sense of synergy, of union, like this one. Okay, not really. How about this one? Or maybe this one's getting a little closer. All right, and here's a theological one. how about this one? Okay, those are silly. But the last one is starting to get at something. I tried to create this one of me. That overlap in the middle, that's me. I realized it captures some truth, but that one more like this is probably more accurate. And even this one is limited. You might want to try it sometime. What would you label as your circles of synergy in your diagram? What various elements have combined to make you even more than their sum? Here's one possible one for our congregation. And I really like this one. It's by Michelle Rial. It's about the Beatles, but I think it might say something about our UU beliefs as well. What would the Beatles do? Okay, all kind of silly, but maybe pointing at some larger reality. We recognize some kind of alchemy that happens when differing parts come together, forming something larger, more interesting, more rewarding, more flexible, more insightful, more energizing than just the sum of the parts. Stephen Covey says that synergy is almost as if a group collectively agrees to subordinate old scripts and to write a new one. And Danielle Marie Kroon emphasizes that the greatest benefit of synergy is born in the diversity of perspectives. The highest value can be found in these variances. She says too much of the same does not create change in the same way. We have all sometimes been Chesters and Wilsons, feeling perfectly fine with our closest friends, but also perhaps stuck in a rut, and invariably inhospitable to those who don't fit in, who aren't just like us. And we have all sometimes been lilies and victors, the new arrivals on the scene, trying to find our way into community, seeking friends, longing for solidarity and support, wanting to be part of something bigger, and hoping to make a difference. A big part of the reason that we're hoping to adopt the 8th principle at our annual meeting today is that we recognize we have some more work to do to be more welcoming and inclusive. Some systemic institutional work, as well as some individual internal work. It will take more intentional efforts on all our parts to remove some of the subtle barriers that may be invisible to many of us, but which are quite apparent to the lilies and victors in the world. We are more and better together. There are so many opportunities to get involved in our congregation, to have the kind of enlivening experiences that Anne mentioned in her role as worship associate and in the choir. Whatever your passion, whatever your unique gifts, combining your efforts with others will create better, stronger, faster, maybe just more and more inclusive and more rewarding opportunities for growth, for transformation, for love. What have we got to lose that we can't replace with some previously unimaginable joy? Adrienne Marie Brown tells us that steady, deep work in the community can open up the space for transformation of the world. Those of us who are so fortunate to have found one another in this community should want to make sure it's open for others to enrich their lives as well as our own, to create the amazing synergy that can only happen when we come together with all of our differences. Like the potter's clay, our disparate pieces, joined well, can better resist the heat and can provide a more solid foundation for the transformation of our world. Our differences can help us better adapt to diverse challenges, creating that synergy and enriching all of our lives. Only together can we create that beloved community, the world we dream of living in. May it be so. Amen.
Now please sing Turn the World Around.
We come from the fire, living in the fire, go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water, go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain, go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? See we know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Whoa, so is life. So is life. Whoa, so is life. So is life. Water make a river, river wash a mountain, fire make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. So is life. Whoa, so is life. So is life.
Please join in our unison words as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but take its light into our lives to be the presence of love, in the midst of fear, the voice of hope in the face of despair, and the hands of justice restoring a world worthy of our children. And now please take someone's hand, or imagine taking someone's hand for our benediction. May we tread softly, speak truthfully, love gently, breathe deeply, live wisely, engage synergistically, and go in peace. Amen. Please enjoy our beautiful postlude.
I am not a stranger to the dark highway, they say, 'cause no want your broken parts, or to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, 'cause no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the flood, gonna drown him out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me, look out, 'cause here I come. And marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets hits my skin. We'll fire away, but today I won't let the shame sink in. We're bursting through barricades and reaching for the sun. We are warriors, and that's what we are. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we're warriors. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the flood, gonna drown him out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me, look out, 'cause here I come. And marching on to the beat I drum.